welcome to Conflict and Resolution e-learning style. I think we're going to have to get used to this. It might be going on for a while. Say hi to my dog Benny. He's excited to be here. He's a big fan of e-learning because he gets to hang out in the house all day. But he also sleeps all day, so don't be like him. Get out and do something. Be active. Walk around. Just don't do it with somebody else. Today we're going to go through slides 5 through 7. Take a look at some of the things that we talked about a little bit before we left, a little bit of review, and a little bit moving on, leading up to our next video. These slides will take us through the next 2 weeks, so you should probably split this in half. All of slide 5, half of 6. We'll watch video on Thursday, and then the following week on Tuesday again, we'll finish up slides 6 and 7. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about the Fedayeen Saddam. They became the primary concern for the coalition forces. The name itself means men, or Saddam's men of sacrifice. This was their guerrilla forces. That's kind of the remnants of the Iraqi Republican Guard that when they realized they couldn't defeat the Americans, they just simply put their uniforms away and they kind of began to group together in these small groups and started fighting a guerrilla-style war. You could probably characterize it as a terrorist-style conflict as well. It's loosely organized by the former members of the Ba'ath Party, which was the ruling party under Saddam. It's made up of predominantly Sunnis, which was the Muslim sect that Saddam Hussein belonged to as well. There were somewhere between 30 and 40,000 members. Again, the numbers aren't 100% accurate. As you'll see when you watch the video, after the Iraqi army was officially dissolved, we declared the end of major combat operations. Iraq itself kind of descends into chaos, turns into a free-for-all. People are looting everything. Anything that wasn't nailed down and had any type of value, it was taken. And as a result, then there aren't a lot of records that are left behind. And this chaos and disorganization allowed this group to thrive and continue to attack the American soldiers and ultimately more or less turn Iraq into a civil war. So we'll see the evolution here. The Fedayeen Saddam will eventually become Al-Qaeda in Iraq, and then it will eventually morph itself into ISI, which will later become ISIS. They're quickly defeated in southern Iraq, but continued to enjoy support north of Baghdad. That's mostly because north of Baghdad, the religion is almost all Sunni Muslim. All right, southern Iraq is almost all Shiite Muslim. And for a while, the Shiite Muslims were very supportive of the Americans because they had been the oppressed minority under Saddam. When Saddam's sons are killed, Uday and Qusay, on July 22nd, 2003, and he is captured on December 13th, 2003, he being Saddam, the Fedayeen are effectively done as a combat organization. They became very disorganized at that point, and it's going to take a different group to kind of absorb them and bring them in. As I said before, most of the Fedayeen are Sunni Muslims, and the Sunni Muslims will ultimately become the majority of Al-Qaeda in Iraq. And some of those were undoubtedly former Fedayeen. So they didn't go away entirely. They just kind of formed a new group. So who is Al-Qaeda in Iraq? And how did they evolve into ISIS or ISIL? First of all, ISIS stands for Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. It's not what they called themselves in Arabic. They actually called themselves Daesh. Daesh is probably more accurately abbreviated IS or ISIL, which stands for Islamic State of Iraq and Levant. The Levant encompasses parts of Syria, Jordan, Israel, and even part of Turkey. So it's a little bit bigger piece of territory. And when we see the ISIS or ISIL reach its peak of power, you'll see that they have territory in almost all of those countries. So again, this is originally composed of militant Iraqi Sunnis, some most likely remnants of the former Ba'ath Party, Saddam loyalists, aka the Fedayeen Saddam. Their leader will become the guy you see in the bottom right-hand corner there. All right, Abu Musab al-Zarqawi. He was a Jordanian, crossed over the border into Iraq at some point in time, was actually captured, they believe, by American soldiers for a while, held in prison. And in that prison, he became radicalized, and he really takes his terrorist game to a whole new level. He will become so violent that Al-Qaeda will actually drop their name and support for him. Osama bin Laden will actually write him a letter telling him that he's too violent for his taste, and that because he's going to eventually turn on the Shiite Muslims in the south and really create this civil war, that Al-Qaeda is going to distance himself, and that's when he'll form ISI. He originally pledges his allegiance to Osama bin Laden in return for bin Laden's endorsement as the leader of Al-Qaeda in Iraq. And that's important because it means money. All right, terrorist organizations cannot exist if they're not funded. And so this was an opportunity to get money. Osama bin Laden had tons of connections around the world, and his access to money is kind of unprecedented in the terrorist world. And so now this gives that same access to Abu Musab al-Zarqawi and his group Al-Qaeda in Iraq. Zarqawi is quickly regarded as one of the most destructive militants in all of Iraq. There's a lot of them, and he quickly rises to the top. And as he rises to the top, he becomes the number one target for the Americans attempting to get him. And he's well aware of that. He began to frequently target Iraqi Shiites and tries to turn Iraq war into a civil war, which it was never actually called a civil war, but the reality of it is it pretty much so was a civil war. And the Americans get caught in the middle. The Shiites turn on the Americans, Sunnis turn on the Americans, everybody turns on the Americans, and they're killing each other. And so you have this group of, three different people or three different groups all fighting each other. And as Americans, we get caught in the middle. September 2005, he declared an all-out war on the Shiite Muslims in Iraq. Al-Qaeda in Iraq will thrive in this chaos of sectarian violence. One of the things that we've noticed as we've been going through this class, hopefully, is anywhere that there is chaos and lack of government structure or organization, typically these terrorist groups begin to grow and then ultimately thrive. There's nobody to track them down, really no one to stop them. And as the people around them become more desperate just for survival, they're willing to join these extremist groups in an effort to just stay alive. All right, they had a 4-stage plan. And this, by the way, is going to be the last slide that I will put together on this video here. 4-stage plan beginning with taking control of Iraq. Step number 1, they wanted all U.S. forces out of Iraq. Step number 2 was establishing in Iraq an Islamic authority, often referred to as a caliphate. You'll hear that from time to time when you watch some of the videos that we have. This is the whole concept of the Islamic State of Iraq. Step 3 was the jihad wave, which should be extended to the secular countries neighboring Iraq. Okay, they considered any country that was not a Muslim country to be secular. All right, secular means to be separated from God or separated from religion. And if you didn't believe the way they believed, then they considered you secular. And then step number 4 ultimately would be the clash with Israel. Israel is in a very unique position in which it has Holy Land that is claimed by all 3 of the major monotheistic religions, Jews, Christians, and Muslims. And Israel is often referred to in the Middle East as kind of the antagonist, or the one place that can galvanize all Muslims they tend to not like. So this is a reoccurring theme throughout the Muslim world. Both Sunnis and Shias don't particularly care for Israel. The official name became, and good luck if you can pronounce this, I'll try, Tanzim Qadat al-Jihad fi Balad al-Rafidan. I have no idea if I pronounced that correctly, but that is the official name in Arabic of Al-Qaeda in Iraq. October 13, 2006, the Governing Council of Al-Qaeda in Iraq declared the establishment of the Islamic State of Iraq, or ISI. That's the very, very beginning of what will morph into ISIS. They're still affiliated with Al-Qaeda, but that's going to change, which we will talk about when we move on to the next group of slides. In reality, the group doesn't control any territory in Iraq yet. They're just getting started. Okay, so I'm going to have you watch the video, and hopefully that will kind of support some of the things that I've talked about here, or you'll see it reinforced.